All wings report in.
HouseDog, standing by.
MotherGoose, standing by.
Lowtech Tuck, standing by.
Lock S foils in attack position. Animal Squadron ready for battle.
Well, hello there, and welcome back to the Animal Squadron podcast. I'm your host, HouseDog, and with me, as always, are my two very best friends in the world. Tuck is back with us this week. Welcome back, Tuck.
Thank you.
We missed you, Tukey.
What's happening? I missed
You're
everybody
not allowed
too.
to talk until I say your name.
You did say my name. You said Tuck.
Yeah, you can talk.
You were close. I mean, you didn't say
I
low
can
tech,
talk
but
whenever I want,
you were very
okay?
close.
And our other best buddy, the hairiest host, the Chewy to my Han, MotherGoose.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad
so
I'm
the
allowed
reason-
to talk now.
The reason why I've been so mad at you is because I'm just going to let everybody in on our little backstory. The other week, whenever we recorded, I had been indulging in a few adult beverages
As
throughout
we
the
all do.
night while
Yep.
we always talk before the
two out
before
of three.
the call
Two
and
out of three of
everything.
us do, I should say.
Yeah, and I was enjoying a couple beverages. I was feeling loose. And Elijah texted me like the next day, and he was like, "Hey, are we good? You kind of cut me off a lot yesterday in the episode. And
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I didn't do anything to upset you or anything." And I was like, "No, we're good, man." So now I just kind of make it a point to be mean to Elijah for at least a couple seconds, so he might text me again asking if we're good.
Or
Good to know, good to know.
Lonely Hearts.
Yeah, I didn't really notice it much while we were recording, but as I was editing the episode, I was like, man, Mac was just really really cutting me off there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, we all talk fast, we all do it, but yeah, it was
Yeah.
to single you out. It was, that one time. It's pretty fun.
I was just having
one
a good
episode.
time. I was just having a good time.
Oh yeah, yeah, and we all have
sure.
a right to.
For sure.
You got to fight for your right to
Yeah.
party. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, buddy.
Exactly.
Beastie Boys, for sure.
Yes, sir.
Well, today we are talking about the Acolyte.
Yep.
This is part 1, the first episode. Do they even have titles? Oh yeah, Master and Apprentice, right? No.
That's
Light
the Qui-Gon
Darkness?
Jinn and Obi-Wan book.
Hang on.
You're Qui-Gon Jinn.
Let me just
Obi-Wan book.
Acolyte.
Hold on. I've got my...
Yeah.
Oh,
the first-
actually, Editor Mac, go ahead and Google that up for us. Do us a
I mean,
solid.
Yeah.
I've got my computer right here. Done.
His new computador.
It's Lost and Found. I think Master and Apprentice is one of the Ahsoka episodes. Okay,
It's called
so,
Lost/Found.
Yeah, /found, not and. Who said and? Kick
No, I
that guy off the show.
I just wanted to say the title because Tucker asked me to do it, and I wanted to be able to give everyone the answer.
Yeah,
Okay.
buddy.
So before we get into this episode and the series as a whole, I think this show has a big responsibility of answering the question of how does Yoda know about the rule of 2? Because
I mean, he's been around for a long time. I don't know.
that is true, but Darth Bane established the rule of 2 1,000 years. 1,000 BBY, that's about the time the Sith disappeared from the galaxy. That's about the time that the Jedi realized, like, oh, hey, we won, the Sith are gone, right? Because the Sith had established the rule of 2 and went into hiding to, do their whole long secret plan that eventually became the Empire, right?
Yeah.
So the Jedi shouldn't have known about the rule of 2, and yet Yoda does.
But also,
I don't know.
too, I mean, like, it was established in 1,000 BBY. Yoda's also not born all that long after that rule gets established.
Right. So by the time he's born, the Sith have already been quote-unquote defeated and gone into hiding.
Yeah, but he's seen a lot in that 900 plus years.
Oh, for
That-
sure.
And I feel like lore gets passed down. Because even after the fall of the Jedi in episode 3, the tales of the Jedi religion and stuff are still around in the galaxy after they were eradicated.
Yeah.
So maybe another Jedi.
I mean, I know
finds
it's
out.
not the same stretch of time, but whenever you have like a massive, like, imagine if I pick any major religion you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, people wouldn't just forget about Buddhism or, you know, like Christianity or, you know what I mean?
That's a good point.
That's true.
Yeah.
But the rule of two was not this like long established thing that the Sith were doing before they were quote unquote eradicated like the Jedi thought. It happened when the Jedi thought they defeated the Sith.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. To be honest, I don't think it probably gets answered in this series.
I don't think it gets answered this season, but I do have some hope that maybe.
You think so?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, we'll write it down in the notebook that Elijah Munden on this day said this. I like it.
For sure.
But thanks. So, Tuck, I had an important question. Mm-hmm. You're the only one out of all of us that has not only watched this once, but this is your second time now.
Yep.
Your first time, you made it 20 minutes?
Yeah, the first time I was very upset. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
In those first 20 minutes, I had some real problems with this series because of the first 20 minutes. I actually go into it in my notes a little bit. I think that you can almost mark where it gets better. So like,
Yeah.
it's to a degree. I think that it was a pilot episode, and I'm willing to forgive that. It's not. I don't want to hold grudges against this show. I want to like it. To be honest, I mean, just putting all cards on the table. I want to like it. It's Star Wars. I want to like it. But yeah, no. In watching it the second time, I mean, I still have the same problems with the first, especially 20 minutes that I did the first time as well. And most of those problems, just to give a general overview, are highly technical issues. I mean, it's mostly, just to boil it down, the first 20 minutes just feel like they were making Star Wars very cheap, if that makes sense. And
like it had a low budget.
and it was like, I mean, not that I represent Star Wars in any way, shape, or form of a fan, but at the same time, I personally felt a little insulted by the first 20 minutes because I thought it was just absolute garbage, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
I tried to
just
go.
transparency.
Go ahead, buddy.
Sorry. I also watched the first 20 minutes and then stopped watching. And then watched it again today in its entirety. And I don't think I was as upset about it as Tucker was, but I actually really agree. Like, I think there's a pretty big quality difference between the first half of the episode and the second half.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It definitely does get better. I tried to go into it with an open mindset and just be like, all right, this is a new Star Wars thing. Let's get it. But I honestly think this is the first Star Wars project since Rogue One that I've watched it and just been like, I don't know if this is going to be my thing. It definitely did get better. Mm-hmm. There are parts that I'm just like, okay, I don't like this. And that's fine. But I wouldn't say from the first episode that you would just scrap the whole show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say, too, my point of view whenever I first watched those first 20 minutes, like, I had been hearing the whole time all the things that people have been saying and that kind of thing. And so I think I went into it with a little bit of a negative mindset already. And then I saw the first 20 minutes and I was like, what the heck is this? I'm done. It was how I originally felt. Now, I'm willing to forgive because I want to like it. I really do. And so I'm trying to give you guys, our fans, an honest review without being tainted by me being upset the first time I watched it.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Yeah.
Which, actually, maybe we just put this here. We had to say this a lot during our sequel review your Star Wars is your Star Wars. Like, if we don't like something, it's totally okay if you like it. And if you like it and we don't like it, if you don't like it and we like it, that's okay too. Like, that's what's great about Star Wars is there's something in here for everybody to enjoy, but not everybody's going to enjoy everything, and that's okay.
Yeah, and actually, too, an encouraging thought to jump off that is pretty much all the problems I had with it, again, were pretty much all technical. As far as the story of it, I didn't have that many problems with it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, mostly it's just we're all theater kids. I mean, us three, and we love cinema and theater and all things relating to that. And so largely my problems are technical, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I tried to view it with the lens of, because we've already mentioned this show's come under fire for literally everything under the sun.
Yeah.
And like I said, I tried to come in with an open mindset and everything. And anytime I thought of like a negative comment, and I have a bunch in my notes, just being honest. I tried to think of another situation in Star Wars where I was watching it here in Acolyte and I said, okay, I don't like this. And then I would try to think of a situation in any of the other original 6 films where maybe there was another situation like this.
Yeah.
Not to, defend the show or whatever, like if you don't like it, whatever, cool. But I was like, okay, is there another instance in Star Wars where this happens?
Yeah.
And why did I justify it for episodes 1 through 6? But because it's
here.
the Acolyte and it's had all these people have had all these opinions and stuff. Because that's all it is. Everybody has an opinion. You're entitled to it. But it's kind of like my dad always says, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one.
Absolutely, yeah. And on that note, too, I think one thing that we all did, I mean, just to go ahead and just address the elephant in the room is, so there are a lot of comments that are against LGBTQ or like have like racial backing and that kind of thing. And I think all of us did and will do a good job to not have that influence our opinion. I mean, like, pretty much all of our opinions have nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
And like, I just want to say that up front.
And as we've talked about multiple times on this show, because this is a conversation that happens a lot within the Star Wars community, like, there's always, sadly, going to be a small minority of Star Wars fans who are racist, who are bigoted, who are going to hate on these shows because they have representation, and that sucks. But that does not mean that we, as Star Wars fans, cannot critique the show for legitimate reasons, like technical issues, bad story, bad dialogue. And I think it's our responsibility to call out racist and bigoted fans and say, like, we don't really see you as a part of this community, but we can still critique the show for valid reasons.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important that in this, especially with how charged this story has been, I just think it's important that we set the tone before we actually start the review.
Yeah,
is a big thing. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Anybody want to open up?
Yeah, let me bring up my notes here real quick. Okay, so this was something I was actually really excited about because we talked about this a ton before the show came out. We did get some opening, it wasn't a crawl, but we did get some opening words, and it does confirm that this is 100 years before the Rise of the Empire, so 100 years before Episode 3, because there was a lot of debate on if this was 100 years before Episode 1, Episode 3, or Episode 4, so I'm really glad that that got clarified there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar note. I just said no crawl, but we got the blue story credit letters, which I thought was kind of, they're not just story credit. It also, whenever Star Wars opens with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, it's the blue letters.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting they opened the show like that because, I mean, no TV show has ever had a crawl.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree.
You're right.
And honestly, anything that does after 1977 is influenced by Star Wars.
Oh, wait. did Ahsoka have a crawl? I remember the words were read.
But I guess what I'm saying is even if it did, it was still influenced by Star Wars. Like, Star Wars is the one that started that, I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, you guys are talking just TV in general, not just Star Wars TV. Sorry, I was confused.
Oh, I was
there.
talking about Star Wars
Oh,
only.
okay. I was talking about it in general.
Gotcha.
No, I was talking about Star Wars only.
I'll look it up because I feel like Ahsoka may have had a crawl.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it may have just been like the Acolyte where the words popped up and we could read them.
Yeah, I meant like your typical episodic Star Wars crawl that we all know and love.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that is one thing that I do like is they originally give, I mean, like a true whodunit, we're going to see hints throughout the whole time of being able to figure out this grand story, which is fun. And one thing that I like in the opening, the introduction, is that the galaxy is a pretty safe place, but at the same time that allows people to start accessing the Force and practicing things in secret. It says something along those lines.
Yeah,
and I liked
note.
that little nugget. I think that it'll apply. I mean, it applies in this episode somewhat, but I'm excited to see the grand scale of just that little nugget and how it'll apply to the story.
Yeah, I had a note on that as well. The dialogue within there, it just says someone's teaching them the Force. I'm like, who is teaching them the Force? Like,
yeah, but also I think that's and at the end of the episode we see someone with a red lightsaber that I think we can only assume is the one teaching people in the outer regions of the Force.
The Force. Yeah.
But also, like again, like a true whodunit, just in that style. I'm excited because I think we're gonna get to find out who that is and why.
I mean, you guys have been spoiled, right?
I have, but
again, you guys know me, dude. I thoroughly live under a rock, and I intend to. So no, I have not. I have, like, if I see anything Acolyte related, I've scrolled away, looked away. I'm not looking.
Yeah. So let's try and keep this conversation just episode 1 and what we know from episode 1.
Yeah.
Okay, I looked up Ahsoka. Yes, it was a crawl. Yes, it wasn't centered. Yes, it still really bothers me. It's been over a year, and it still really bothers me. Davey, please, center it.
You can't, man. You can't. It wouldn't surprise me if there's, like, actually, like, a clause with anybody that worked with Star Wars. Like, if it's not a main film or whatever, you can't do a crawl.
Oh, maybe.
That's interesting.
Or, I mean, Ahsoka's was a crawl, but it wasn't, it couldn't be like an actual Star Wars crawl where it's centered, it's kind of angled as it's going through space. This was just a rise up from bottom to top.
Yeah.
My next note is I like the cool gate guy that we see there.
Yeah.
On the planet where the chick asked the little alien there. I liked him.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was cool to see.
Well, and also I like that they returned to practical effects. I mean, it looked good. Actually, it's funny you bring that up because my first note actually was I don't like the CGI of when she's actually walking through the town until she gets to that little alien guy. Before that point, those like 10 seconds or whatever, it looks like an actor in front of a green screen. It just I didn't like it. I thought it looked cheap.
I will admit, I was writing notes at this point, so I didn't really watch or pay attention as she was walking into town. Sorry, boys.
Yeah, I feel like I missed little things too because I had one side of my screen was Acolyte, one side was my notepad. So
yeah, no, I got
Yeah.
you. I definitely paused at points in the episode so I could write notes, but at the same time, I do want to avoid being overly nitpicky. I mean, I know no one likes someone who's just attacking something, so I think that's my main like little stupid nitpicky note. Otherwise,
you gotta remember, you're talking to the
us
guys
have
that
it.
did a 7-hour podcast, well, a 2-part podcast in total of 7 hours over episode 3, Tuck. So
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I just want to be fair.
Let us have it,
I just want to
Tukey.
be fair. I don't want to be a jerk,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't have anything until they start fighting.
Yeah, mine is who just walks in a bar and says attack me. That's like my first maybe overly critical thing of the show, but I was like I didn't get it.
It's a weird line. It's a really weird line.
I didn't
actually
really
have a defense for
understand.
it.
I didn't really understand how this is how we're introducing basically Sith assassins, right?
Yeah.
Or acolytes, like whatever you want to call them. Like, and again, this is whenever I started to try to think about, okay, when else have I seen this? Excuse me. When else have I seen this in Star Wars, and how can I relate it to something else? And I was like, Ventress never really just walked into places and was like, all right, time to fight. She was always there as a distraction or something else, and she played her role well. But
Yeah.
I didn't understand the whole, this chick walking into the bar and be like, Jedi Master, fight me right now, right here.
Yeah, and also like that's a very strange, as far as lore goes, that's a strange thing to say to a Jedi Master, because they're not going to. I mean, like, Jedi Masters are going to say no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's just that's a weird way to open that. I mean, like, if you're a Sith assassin or an acolyte or whatever, like Max said, you know, like, wouldn't you do what Ventress does and surprise them in the dark? Surprise them when they're alone? I mean, like, you know, walking into a public place and saying, fight me, is just a very weird way to confront a Jedi. And I thought that it was a little goofy and, again, a little cheap. Like, I just thought it was kind of a silly way to introduce it.
Or like set fire to the town. Or so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. In defense of that line, I think it's really important that we look at the reaction of the crowd around them. Like, I agree the line was goofy, but you know who else agreed? Literally everyone else in the bar as they started laughing at her. And it reminds me a lot of Jar Jar Binks. You know, a lot of people can complain about Jar Jar Binks, but the thing is, like, even the characters within Star Wars did not like Jar Jar Binks and did not like his antics, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a big difference between somebody coming in and saying a really cringy line that sounds bad and everyone laughing at her, than someone coming in and saying a really bad line that's really cringy, and then the actors are forced to pretend like, oh, that was such a cool line. Oh, she's dangerous.
Oh, okay. So you're saying that you think it was intentional from a writing perspective?
Yeah, they were purposely trying to make her, like, look bad.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I can vibe with that. So
think
again,
as
you're
long-
healing my wounds, Elijah. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's all about, with cringy lines and bad lines or bad jokes, really how well they work for me all comes down to how do the other characters in the story react to it. If they have a similar reaction to that I'm having, okay, that was on purpose. If they're having a reaction that just doesn't make sense, it was a badly written line, and it didn't portray what the author wanted it to.
Yeah, I like that.
It's definitely a good way to look at it. I completely forgot about everybody else at that table being like, what are you talking about, dude?
Yeah. And listen, it's just been years of defending Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
I just...
But also too, like, as
you do it for so long, you get used to it.
as theater boys, though, I mean, like, you know, we were all taught that acting is mostly reaction.
Yeah.
And I mean,
for
I
sure.
think you're, you know, doing a good job of reminding us of that. Our shared childhood thing we all did together. Yeah.
Thank you, boys. Thank you. But yeah, anything else on their conversation before they start fighting?
No, I mean, other than I thought it was a little weird. My first note with the fight is the knife thing. I mean, I guess I can understand that to introduce this character that doesn't know what they're doing and are trying to approach a Jedi for the first time without knowing what they're doing, that they might bring a knife with them. But it's like,
Yeah.
haven't you at least heard legends? I mean, like, I just think it's, again, kind of a goofy thing to do. Like just to approach a Jedi with a knife and be like, fight me.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think that's
Yeah.
a strange thing. Like, I mean, in another TV show or movie or whatever, I can understand it because it's a world with guns and knives and like a somewhat normal. But I mean, you're telling me that you would approach probably one of the most powerful warriors in the entire galaxy that is literally a space wizard with a laser sword, and you're going to attack them with a knife? I mean, that just seems goofy. I think that was weird.
It kind of seems very Sith, though, because if you think back to Clone Wars, whenever Dooku took on Savage as his apprentice, and during his training, he made Savage attack him, and he never drew his lightsaber. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I hadn't thought about that, yeah.
But that's also to train him.
He beat Savage.
Yeah. But that's to train him. I
Yeah.
mean, this is a full-on extermination mission. You know, like this.
Right.
But it's also a training.
Like, May has been hired to attack and kill this Jedi, and also she's doing it, quote-unquote, for vengeance, right? And I think we'll get into that later in the show, whether it's vengeance or she was hired or whatever. But at the same time, I just think, like, if she's somewhat contracted, whether that's emotionally or financially, to kill the Jedi, it's just it's a weird tactic. I think it's goofy. I think it's a little silly.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
Who's May?
We'll get into. I mean, we do learn her name.
I know.
Later
I'm just
on.
giving you shit,
But
buddy.
yeah, no,
I'm just giving you shit,
I got
buddy.
you. Yeah.
No, so here's on that. I think the stranger, the person with the red lightsaber at the end, he has this really weird dialogue where he's talking about how she was supposed to kill the Jedi without a lightsaber or steal, which we can get into at the end. But I think
literally wrote that note as well.
But I think the whole point of what they're trying to show is the Sith are in hiding right now, and so they're trying to make their kills of Jedi not look like Force users that killed them.
But also, why not use a
Right?
blaster?
That's a good point.
That's a far more advanced weapon than a knife. I mean, that's silly. I just think the knife is silly. I just gotta be honest.
Silly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's totally fair. That's totally fair.
I don't know.
You could use a sword, and I think I'd be more happy with it. It's just like, I mean, with a knife, first of all, just with knives in general, I mean, like, everyone knows that in a knife fight, the winner dies in the hospital and the loser dies in the street. I mean, like, knife fights, a knife is probably the worst thing that you could try to fight someone with, first of all.
Yeah.
And I thought it was silly. I don't like it.
And that's fair.
Yeah.
That's totally okay. And I think, it's pretty clear throughout their fight that it's Indara, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
Jedi
Master Indara.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she is winning the fight. The only reason that May actually wins is because she uses civilians to trick Indara.
Which is a Sith thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, honestly,
yeah,
as far
for
as a positive comment is, I like the way that they portray the Jedi in this. Really, honestly, the whole episode. I mean, for the most part, I don't really have a big problem, especially with me being a big Jedi fanboy. I mean, I don't really have any big issues as far as how this first episode treats the Jedi. I think for the most part, it's pretty accurate.
The way they're doing the Jedi and everything in this series, just off this first episode, reminds me a lot of how they're portrayed in the books. Because you can obviously do a lot more in books than you can in film or TV shows. You have, you can tell the reader exactly how they should be portrayed in a book versus a movie where you can kind of infer things and make your own ideas. But that's honestly what it reminds me of, is how the Jedi are portrayed in the books.
And I completely agree with that. Yeah, I mean,
So I definitely like that.
Mm-hmm.
Back to Acolyte. Don't like how Indara was like force jumping up to that platform
That's
for whatever reason.
Yep, that was my next
I did not
comment.
like that.
That was my next comment. The whole choreography of this scene, and not that it's a bad series of movies, because honestly, I like this movie, and I know that most people do, but we were watching Pirates of the Caribbean for a second, rather than Star Wars, as far as the choreography goes.
Okay, I can kind of see that.
It was top
okay.
down, first of all, which was a little weird. And then secondly, we had to see every single footstep. So you can actually watch Indara whenever she jumps up, rather than force jump like a Jedi would. She runs and hits like 2 or 3 stairs, hits the banister, jumps up to the next banister, and then is on the next platform. And it just, it looked weird. Like, I don't think that that's how Jedi, and especially Jedi fight scenes, should be choreographed. Like, it looked less like Star Wars and more like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Or like
That-
a
yeah,
ninja
that's
type
fair.
thing.
Yeah, which actually the ninja thing, that's a great way to explain it, like what I'm trying to say. Because like Pirates of the Caribbean, I mean that's kind of how it is. I mean they move like people would move, I guess.
Right,
rather
not these
than
superpowered beings with
yes.
enhanced strength
Yeah,
and speed and reflexes.
And it's strange. It adds kind of a strangeness that I'm not overly fond of.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, after that, I had another line. It was Jedi do not attack the unarmed. And like you can clearly see she has weapons
Yeah.
on her.
Right. She'd already held a knife to some lady's throat at this point.
Yeah.
And then I have I tried to look for it more throughout the episode, and then I tried to think about other Star Wars and everything. But I noted a couple times all of their hilts are like thick. Like all of the lightsaber hilts seem really thick.
Yeah.
yeah.
Was that just a me thing? But they seem just like ridiculously thick.
Here's the big problem. All three of us have a really big hole in our knowledge about the High Republic, and I feel like the bigger lightsaber hilts is a plot point somewhere. I can't remember where, but I've heard people talk about the differences between High Republic lightsabers and then the like prequel era lightsabers.
Yeah.
So I do think that's on purpose. I just don't know why.
And actually, I can expound on that a little bit. I mean, just from with how the lightsabers work, I think. I mean, and you know how that is. But so, for instance, a good example of in the movie era how the lightsabers were built to them is think about like Dooku. He has a curved hilt, and it's also like a real life cavalry saber or some sort of lightsaber that's meant for, I mean, light space saber, I should say, that's meant for swinging, attacking, fighting someone else with a bladed weapon. Like, that's what it's for. It's light, it's fast, it's curved so it fits your hand better, it's more ergonomic. And like that makes perfect sense. But I think kind of where Star Wars is going with this pre-movie time period is that like Elijah had said, that in their mind they had largely conquered the Sith, so they thought that they were all good, and so you know maybe that had some influence as far as lightsaber design, because they were mostly just ceremoniously training with each other, like just keeping their art and religion alive, but not as much so for fighting. Like they weren't as concerned about that. And then I also
sorry, just real quick before you move to your next point on the fighting, there was, I don't remember the name, but during the High Republic era there is a large group of pirates that the Jedi are actively fighting.
yes,
But in support of your point, it's not like they're fighting other force users.
yeah, they have blasters. And so, a larger hilt, for instance, would probably be much better suited for blocking a heavy attack like a blaster shot. It doesn't require as much finesse as saber-to-saber combat. But the other thing that I think is interesting as well is because, like, in this time period, I really think between whenever they think they conquered the Sith and the movies, the Jedi really, really lean into the we're keepers of the peace, not soldiers ideal.
Yeah.
And so, again, I think the larger hilt, not only would it be better at just blocking blasters, but I think it's also that they somewhat nerf themselves because of this idea that they're keepers of the peace and that they don't really need to be on the attack. And so they build these wider lightsabers that are kind of silly looking because they're for defense, and that's it.
Yeah.
But then 100 years later, we have Dooku, Qui-Gon's lightsaber, Obi-Wan's original lightsaber, which is modeled heavily after Qui-Gon's.
But also, too, I think the other thing that we have to remember is in the movie era, every single one of those Jedi you just named are outliers. They're not the normal Jedi.
Yeah.
Every single one of them, for different reasons, were outliers.
Fair enough.
I've actually got another theory on that that I've noted several times, but I can just talk about it all right now because it all kind of fits together. It's this show is also showing us the progression of technology. Like between the prequel era and the original trilogy, there's a big jump in technology. And we're seeing that here between Acolyte and the prequel era. Like, in the prequel era, Obi-Wan's fighter has to attach to this, like, circular thing.
The hyperspace rings.
Yeah, hyperspace rings, so he can actually travel in hyperspace, while X-Wings don't need it. But then on the other hand, in Acolyte, their ship has to attach to this, like, giant, massive thing that's either about the size of their ship or maybe even bigger so they can go into hyperspace.
Yeah.
So that also could be part of it too, is maybe just progression of technology. Maybe during the High Republic era, their lightsabers did have to be a little bigger to power it, kind of how our phones have gotten smaller over time.
I thought of that too whenever we first started talking about this. I was like, maybe Tuck's going to talk about the components or something. Maybe he has some knowledge that I don't know about.
I'm Tucker now.
But I did consider that too. Maybe the components got better, which is another thing.
Yeah, but also what about, I mean, one thing I'd be curious is an actual canon example of the Jedi versus Sith wars. Were they more into building lightsabers like Count Dooku's or lightsabers like we see in the Acolyte? Because they had to be prepared for saber-to-saber combat and fighting another Force user. So what were their lightsabers like? We know, just based off of the EU, that absolutely they made sabers to fight other Force users, and they were very efficient. But but I'd love to see a canon example that we've never gotten one.
The only area we might have a little glimpse of hope is Darth Bane in Clone Wars. I'm looking it up right now, and I don't see a lightsaber on his hilt. Sorry, on his belt.
But also he's a ghost at that
ghost.
point, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So we'll have to see what's up later.
Yeah. Well, just to move us forward, during this whole section, we also have Endura contacting someone and saying, I have a rogue Force user. So something the show is going to have to do to make it work with the prequel era, what we know the Jedi have said about the Sith is either A, everyone who finds out about these Sith are going to have to die so that what they say later can make sense, or B, the Jedi are going to find out the truth and sweep it under the rug. So this is... I'm just going to keep tally. This is a point for they find out the truth and sweep it under the rug. But we'll just have to see what actually happens.
I'm in that boat with you as well, my friend.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, again, even as a Jedi apologist, I'll go ahead and call myself. I'm a true believer. Like, I love the Jedi a lot, but I also could believe that certain Jedi, rather than cause hysteria and all that stuff, especially in this era of we're keepers of the peace, etc., I think that if a Jedi finds out about it, especially a Jedi in power, they're going to be awfully tempted to just sweep it under. And I could believe that, and it's also one of the problems that leads to them going wrong, which is, again, what I think this show is intended for, is to give us a window into that time period.
Yeah.
Of when they really started messing up.
Just to kind of move us forward, she, like we mentioned, she throws the knife at the barkeep, which gives her the opening to kill Endura. Mm-hmm. Do we have anything on this before we move forward?
All I said was she's got stabbed in the heart. She's gonna die, right? Because I was fully expecting for the scene to end and then seeing Endara in a med bay or something.
Something, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Then my next note was just that death was lame as hell for a Jedi Master. And then I defended that by thinking about Episode 3 whenever they go to confront the Emperor and they all get cut down in a matter of seconds. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
I tried to justify it there and everything, but I was like, that death was kind of lame as hell for a Jedi Master. You're telling me her senses aren't attuned enough to realize that another blade is coming at her?
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I wrote, a Jedi died, let's go. And I mean that in the case of somebody actually died and they're dead, you know?
Yeah, which is
We've
why I
talked-
wrote my first note like that,
Yeah.
was she's gonna die, right?
We've talked on the show a lot about how Disney's had this really bad problem of fake out deaths. And it's always sad to see a Jedi die, but I think just narratively, this is like repairing some of that.
Oh, so Elijah's saying he was sad whenever Jedi Master Pong Krell died.
Pong Krell is the worst. I hate Pong
Nah,
Krell.
you were sad. It's always sad when a Jedi dies, isn't it, Elijah?
No, it's fine,
But
Elijah.
Pong Krell wasn't a Jedi at the time. He'd betrayed the Order. Eat my shorts,
But also,
boys.
according to the other Jedi, he was still a Jedi. What do you do with that information? Yoda thought that he was still a Jedi.
Yeah, but Yoda was wrong.
Yeah, Yoda been wrong before.
How about
Yeah.
How about your boy Obi-Wan? Still thought that Pong Krell was a Jedi when he died.
Obi-Wan on top, but he's wrong.
Yeah, man. I'm just saying, just poking some holes in your tinfoil here, just cause.
He is.
Yep, you're the baked potato right now, and I'm poking holes.
The next most important point of this show, we finally see our first droid.
Yep.
Pip!
And
Pip is supreme!
that is. Oh, okay. Yeah. So actually, her little joke. What's his name? What'd you say?
Pip.
Pip. Yeah, I actually do like that droid, but
Actually, my first comment is really sick. I don't know why, but I felt this deep in my soul, and I immediately wrote it about 0.2 seconds after seeing Pip. I just wrote "Death to Pip."
die.
I don't know why. I don't know why, but I wanted him to get crushed or smashed or blown into a million pieces immediately.
Well, Mac and I are no longer friends. Tucker, hey buddy.
Hey, man.
What do you think of Pip?
So I liked Pip, but my general note for the episode, and I'll just try to be speedy with some stuff like this, but aside from Pip, I hated the droids in this episode deeply.
I do have another droid note.
Deeply hated the droids. I mean, like the guard on the ship is clearly a dude in a cheaply made suit.
That made me.
It's
yeah,
not
that
even.
was my
it's
note.
not even a droid. Like my note was that, like, oh my gosh, practical effects from 1977 were light years better than this droid costume.
Yeah, no, yeah, the
was
beefy
pretty bad,
3PO.
yeah.
That's what I call
Awful.
him. I call him beefy 3PO.
Yeah, I thought it was
dude,
terrible.
that made me so angry.
Me
I was
too,
like,
yeah.
he's not moving like a droid at all. And then I was trying to like justify it somehow.
It's a
like,
dude.
He's a guard droid or whatever. And I get that it's practical effects versus CGI, because I was like, okay, well, what about in Mando? We have the security droids on there, and they move really fluidly. Or even like IG-88 in Mandalorian, you know, he moves really fluid, but he still has like that robotic sense about him.
Yeah, right.
And IG-88 is both practical and CGI, but whenever he's doing his like really crazy movements and everything, it's obviously CGI. Mm-hmm. But I was like, even then, you still get a sense that this is a robot.
Right. And what I'm saying is, like, if you were gonna do it, why couldn't you have done it just setting the bar really low. Why couldn't you have done it to the degree that they did when Star Wars first came out like 45 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
And
Anthony
you could-
Daniels doing his 3PO. You know it's Anthony Daniels in there, but you're still like, oh,
But it's-
3PO moves.
It's significantly
like
better.
terribly.
Significantly
And
better.
you know it's a robot, or you know it's a guy, but you're like, okay, that's a robot. That's how robots move in this world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all weird and
Yeah.
Which, to support your point, I would like to bring up Zian44, I think is her name. Oh, no, Zian A4, the droid from Jedi Survivor that Cal finds from the High Republic era. She, I think, is a perfect example of, like, what I'm imagining older droids to look like in the Star Wars universe. And so she looks very different, but she still moves like the Star Wars droids. And this happens, I think, about Jedi Survivor. It's like flashback time takes place, I think, 10 years roughly after Acolyte.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're really close there.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. I was not a fan of the droids in this episode.
Yeah.
And also, while we're on this note, just as far as complaints, and I promise I think this is my last one, maybe, we'll see. But also, hated the costumes
Yeah.
in the first
Yeah.
half. I mean, I thought those Jedi robes looked terrible. It was
Agreed.
It was a white robe with what's essentially a yellow burlap sack on them. And I just thought
Yes.
it looked like you got the Walmart version of Party City Jedi costume.
well, not
Yeah.
only that, but it was like the gold trim and everything. And since we're talking about Jedi robes, I know this is the High Republic and it's a different era and everything, but their costumes for the Jedi felt very like gaudy.
Yeah.
With how, even though they're very simplistic, I know it's still like almost kind of the Jedi traditional robes that we know from everything, but it felt almost too crisp and too clean for me.
And you can even see it about halfway through the episode. They change robes. I mean, they disguise it as, oh, we're leaving the temple, so let's put on our
going on a
put on our
mission.
mission stuff. But like, literally 20 something minutes in the episode, they clean up their act, and so that's again where I think they realized their mistake, and that this did
Yeah.
look like crap, and they realized that. I think.
And
I have a good
just
note.
to be Oh wait, sorry. Before you
Go ahead,
we move
buddy.
on, just on the Jedi High Republic robes, the gold white robes in everything else High Republic look phenomenal. The comics, the cover art for the books, Dagan Gera's outfit in Jedi Survivor, all of these, the gold and white look so good. I don't understand how they messed it up this much in this episode.
Like I said, I mean, it seems like not even Party City brand. It seems like they went they went to a store brand version of Party City and bought these costumes. Horrible.
Yeah, it's not a. These robes aren't a High Republic issue. It's an Acolyte issue.
Yeah, and we're talking about too. I mean, like, again, like, just not even joking around. Like, these people have Disney money. Like, these costume departments have Disney money, and they give us this, and I thought it was really disappointing.
Someone listened to the last episode.
I don't think
Someone loves us.
I do love you guys deeply, but actually, I don't think I listened to it all the way, to be honest. Last episode.
Well, then death to you.
Death the Ducker.
I can leave.
No, but my good note is I thought the Nemordians looked good.
Yeah,
I did
they
too.
Did. They look
I
really
did too.
good.
Actually, I have a note about that. That it was like, you know, I feel like they reused some Phantom Menace makeup and maybe some like ways of doing things, but I liked that. Like they looked great.
I mean, they've got them
Yeah.
from episode 3.
That's true. I forgot about that.
But they look good. They moved how we know Nemoidians move, like facially and mouth-wise,
Yeah.
from episode 1 and episode 3.
Absolutely.
And episode 2. Nemoidians are in episode 2 as well.
Yeah.
So I was, you know, because they never really improved that, because it's a prosthetic, like, robot mouth and everything, and the eyes and everything. And I like that they didn't try to improve it. And maybe they did,
me
but
too.
I like that it looks like how we know Nemoidians move.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I thought it looked great.
Well, so we do meet OSHA, Pip. They get sent out to do some construction work, and a fire starts. And I really want to talk about this fire.
Yeah, why the hell is there fire in space?
No. No,
Actually, I mean,
Mac.
because that's like, I mean, in Star Wars, we have fire explosions
In
with
space all the
and
time.
also we have explosions with sound. We have all sorts of stuff that don't make any sense.
The
physically.
explosions for sound, that's been brought up before, and
Yeah.
that's for us. That's for the movie viewer, so that you have that intensity. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
This is like a blazing fire in the vacuum of space.
But I think it's the same thing. I think it's just because it's just to put the problem in the plot, like a reason for her to start working on it, which I can appreciate.
The only way I got it to be okay was I was like, they're in a shield bubble of the, you know, because
Yes.
ships have deflector shields and everything. I was like, they've got the deflector shield up. That's why there's fire, because they're not in the vacuum of space. It's within the bubble. So that's why there's fire.
Interestingly enough, I'm sorry, Elijah, go ahead.
But they're wearing
No.
spacesuits, so I don't know.
My note's small.
We've seen fire in space so much in Star Wars.
I'm okay
like,
with it.
literally in episode 3, multiple of the ships are on fire.
I know,
They're,
are
like,
on
fire. So my personal belief is that space in Star Wars does not work like space in our universe.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I am too. My main note, actually, the reason that I had a problem with the fire was not that it existed. I'm okay with that. Because again, like, you know, we see ships explode, explosions have sound. I mean, all sorts of... it's science fiction. Like, obviously, it doesn't work like our world. I mean, I'm fine
You're
with
telling
that.
me this isn't real?
Yeah, I wish it was, but it's not.
No.
But, you know, my only problem with it was, again, just it looked cheap to me. The fire. It looked like they went
A stage fire?
Yes, and and even different than that, like it did look like a stage fire, but also it looked to me like they bought a imitation fireplace on Amazon and slapped it into the set and lit that bad boy up. Like, I mean, I thought it looked kind of silly and cheap. Like, pretty much all my complaints are that these first 20 minutes are silly and cheap. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but actually, on your point, Mac, I actually kind of like that theory, though, that it's because they're in a shield bubble. Like, I'm looking through right now a lot of the examples of fire. Like, we see several Venators on fire in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
There's a fire on... what's Darth Vader's ship called in Episode 6? His really big one. His Super
It's not the
Star Destroyer.
Intimidator. It's not the Intimidator.
Well, whatever its name is, there's a fire on that ship. But, so again, it's completely fine with me, but all of these examples are could be underneath their shield bubble. So, that's my whole point. I really like your theory.
Thanks, buddy. Oh, Darth Vader's Super Star Destroyer is the Executor.
Gotcha. Thank you.
When did I turn into editor, Elijah? I hate this.
I do, so multiple times, I'm just going to note this here, because I've noted this a few times. I'm really vibing with the ship design of Acolyte. I think it really just, like, it's 100 years. It's 87 years before Episode 3, 87 before Episode 1, 100 before Episode 3. Technology is not as advanced, and I think they do great making it feel distinct, yet still within the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
I will agree with that comment.
I do, too.
I wasn't a fan of it, of the Nemoidian ship that they're on.
Yeah.
The like couple seconds that we get of the ship that Yord and the Padawan are on that we barely see in that one scene where the fire's happening. That one looked
kind of
pretty
looks
cool.
like an X-wing, but it's still got its own unique design.
Yeah, if we could see more of that one, I could make a deliberate whether I like it or not. But just from that one shot, I did like that.
Yeah.
Are we ready to talk about Yord?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah.
What you got?
I hate Yord. Yord is the worst.
Why is that?
He just sucks. He is just, I just don't like him. He, like, obviously, I think they're setting him up to have this big character progression throughout this season. Maybe not like a full character progression this season if we get another season. Obviously, he's going to change and everything, but I just do not like him. From this very first interaction, I do not like him. I think he represents everything that is wrong with the Jedi just from this one interaction of him. Because he...
Yeah.
And it gets brought up more later in the episode, but he just thinks that because he's to me, in my opinion, it seems like he thinks that because he is a Jedi, that means that he's better, maybe not better than others, but that he's on this separate level than the rest of the population of the galaxy.
Yeah, there's a pridefulness to him.
A haughtiness about him.
Yeah, I agree.
I actually, just on that, to me, it's more of like a just stiffness. Mm-hmm. He just feels very stiff, and it might just be the actor. I don't think, I've never seen him in anything else. He probably has acted in other things, but who knows how much he actually has been. But he might be just a little nervous. Like, he's in Star Wars now. That's big.
This is also the actor that was convinced that Anakin Skywalker blew up the Death Star. So
yes,
Yep,
that is true.
And also with the nervousness thing. I mean, because you got to think about it the way that we're watching this. It's been shot, cut, recut, reviewed,
edited,
cut it again, and then released. And it's, I just, I would think to Mac's point that it's probably purposeful in some way, and we'll probably find out
it's
why.
Gotta be.
But I also,
it's gotta be.
I also am not a big fan. But at the same time, I mean, like, what it looked like to me is also the righteousness thing. I mean, it looked like, you ever know someone who is, like, I guess the best way to bring this up is like someone who is in a position of power that they shouldn't be in. And they're acting like they're trying way too hard.
They're faking it till they make it.
Yeah, like kind of the same thing. Like he's trying way too hard to be a Jedi Knight and be this like smart, good hero kind of guy. When like deep down, he's actually not as smart as he thinks he is. And if that's where they're going with the character, I actually like him in this case.
Because he didn't. Because this is how he was instructed to make this character.
He's portraying it perfectly. He's portraying it perfectly.
He killed it.
But that's very conditional. And
if this is
I'm
the way
honestly
that
hoping,
the story is supposed to go.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Yeah.
To be honest,
We'll definitely just have to wait and see for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, this has been such a. I was worried that we were gonna get on Acolyte and it was just gonna be like 30 minutes of just I hate everything. But this has
sucks.
actually been a really good conversation.
I think it's pretty productive.
Halfway through the
so.
episode.
Yeah, I think it's pretty productive.
But yeah, not a fan of Yord.
Saying we're talking about just the positivity in this conversation. I actually really like this first episode. I think I like it better than the sequels, just based on this one episode.
Yeah,
I wouldn't go that far.
Which is not saying much for me, but it is saying something.
I want to see the rest of the show. I do think, actually, upon watching this episode in its entirety, I do now have some hope.
For the rest of it.
Because originally, I mean, like I had said earlier, like I was just genuinely upset with the first 20 minutes. and how it looked the first time I watched it. I mean, you guys saw that. I mean, I literally, just for context to the audience, I was sending paragraphs. I was writing novels about how much I hated this first episode. It
was pretty incredible.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm coming around a little bit in that I now have hope based on watching the rest of it. And so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens,
sure.
or we'll see if Elijah and Matt get to read more novels by me. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, OSHA gets taken into custody. Is that where you're trying to move us, Elijah?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, OSHA gets blamed for killing Master and Dara. Just a quick thing here. What did you guys think of because this is the first, like, alien Jedi that talks, I think, in the show.
Oh.
The Padawan, the cat-looking thing.
Yes.
This is the same species of slavers in the Clone Wars, just for context.
Is it
The Zargarians?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Zargarian.
Yeah, I think this is our first live-action Zargarian.
And I thought the
Sweet.
makeup honestly was commendable. I mean, I thought honestly that the makeup for this character was good.
Oh, yeah. They did a phenomenal job.
She looks like an alien.
I did.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I did think the ears were a little big compared to the rest of the Zargarians.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like such a minor thing that doesn't matter.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
got
so
you.
it's Zygarians. Just
Yeah.
I looked it up. Sorry, I had to. I didn't even know she was
No,
a
that's okay.
Zygarian. I didn't even know she was a
I didn't-
Zygarian. So
I didn't
kudos
either
to
until
you, brother.
I think somebody on TikTok pointed it out like months ago. So
They did
I
a
can't
good
take
job
full
with
credit
that.
for it.
With bringing that alien. I think this is the first alien that's been brought from cartoon to real life that has actually looked decent.
I agree with that. Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't think of anything else, but I agree with it. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, good-
specifically from cartoon only.
Right,
You know,
like,
'cause we don't
it
have
originated in
Zygarians.
one of the animated series.
Yeah. We don't have.
Yeah.
I think the Zygarians are one of the only few that we've only seen in cartoon.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she gets framed and everything, and then that's whenever I brought up Beefy 3PO. That's where I'm at.
Oh, in
she's
the
on
prison?
the prison ship.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I will say with Beefy 3, I mean, I think we've already made our points about him. Unless you have anything to say,
yeah.
Elijah.
Yeah. No, that's everything. Do we want to... I think there might be a scene between Sol and Vernestra here. Do we want to
Yep,
talk about
that's
that, or
where
do
I
we want
was-
to talk about the prison break?
I was gonna talk about the meditation children
Yeah, that's
scene.
that's the scene I'm on as well.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yes, ignore the child who's clearly seeing the dark side and masking it with, yes, there are many powerful things in the universe. there are oceans and fire.
But also, isn't that a pre-Clone Wars Jedi thing to do? That's
Yeah.
why, like, honestly, again, like, I really don't have many problems at all with how the Jedi are represented in the show. I think it's pretty accurate.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no,
is that-
I'm agreeing
no,
with you.
That's
Yeah,
what I was,
I'm
it
agreeing
was-
with you. Yeah.
I was like, okay, cool. We're kind of getting away from those comments that we've all been reading and hearing on media and everything. Is, you know, everybody's like, I hate everything they did with the Jedi and stuff like that. But I was like, this is a perfect example of what we're getting right here. They're actually building the story of how do we get to episode 1 and beyond of
Yeah.
the Jedi being like, how did we get here? Well,
Yeah.
this is exactly how we get here. We're literally inside of the temple. Master Soul is teaching these children. He's just like, yep, there's fire and ocean, kids, and they're all a part of the Force, but we're not going to discuss the dark side of the Force.
And
Yeah.
it boils down to the most important question in all of Star Wars, which is, why does the Force need to be balanced? Mm-hmm. And it's leading up to that.
Yeah.
Like, why does episodes 1 through 6 really matter? Like, what does that actually do for the universe? And
Yeah.
this is helping to answer that question, even though the movies do a pretty good job, but this is definitely assisting in that.
Yeah. Okay, so we have Soul teaching the kids, and then we have Master Vernestra, I believe is how you pronounce her name, come in, and they have this conversation. Vernestra is pretty big in the comics and books for the High Republic, apparently. I don't know much. I do know some people call her Vern, and she actually hates that. That's about as much as I know about her.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, all I had about this was whenever her and Soul are talking, and he's like, this is before we get the reveal later in the episode. She's telling Soul, like, OSHA has been put into custody for killing Master Andara, and he's just like, that's impossible. OSHA couldn't have done this. And I was just like, that Jedi blindness is thick as hell, boy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep, it's true.
And even though later it gets revealed of the character thing and all of that, I was like, we're still building on that idea of the Jedi blindness and how do we get here. And I enjoyed it. I was like, okay, cool. Here's another point that actually supports the main storyline of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and also, she mentions during their conversation, she's like, it'd be really bad if word came out about this, that a former Jedi killed a master. And they both agree. They're just like, yep, we'll sweep this incident under the rug.
Right, so our political enemies don't find out about it. I was sitting there like, oh, this is getting good. This is real.
Yeah, we had like 3 really good points right there. I was just like, okay, they're doing it. This show might have a chance. This is just a pilot, but maybe it's got a chance. So I was really happy about that. And then we get back on the prison ship, and that's whenever we had the whole debate earlier about how beefy 3PO just doesn't move like a droid at all.
Yeah. Okay, I've got a couple points here. The Diebuck, the little like starfish thing that subdues prisoners.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was interesting.
That thing was freaky.
I thought that was a very interesting thing to introduce. I mean, I really very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Rogue One. The creature, the like pilot that gets his mind kind of wiped.
The mind sucker thing.
Yeah. At first I was like, oh, are these the same species?
Oh, what
and
is
I
that
looked it
thing
up
called? They call it
very
something
much
weird. They call it something weird.
Editor Mac, find out.
I know, I am.
Spend time with Rogue One. But yes, I thought that was really interesting. And then the
Boar
robot
gullet.
chairs. Say it again.
Boar gullet.
Boar gullet. Hell yeah.
That's what they call it.
The robot chairs I really loved. Like they're sitting there piloting the ship, and then they get shut
robot
down.
Chairs.
And then they like move back into becoming chairs, and I was like, oh, that was such a cool detail.
Yes, their heads are actually the headrests, and their arms are the arm. Yes, I thought I loved it too. It was so great.
Yeah, it makes so much sense.
It does. It does. It was awesome. I'm right there with you, buddy.
Okay, so their cyborg breaks them out. A lot of the prisoners get on one escape pod. OSHA and Pip are able to get out together. She goes back in to save the Diebuck guy who betrays her. He escapes. Do we have anything here?
I like how they started to build that doubt of OSHA being the bad guy with her clearly struggling to use the Force here. Mm-hmm. Because during that entire scene, I was like, what are you doing, girl? Like, just pull it over to you. Like, I literally saw you 2 scenes ago literally using the Force. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
And I think that was a good story point.
Just to support your point, going back to save the guy, I felt like also was reinforcing that maybe she's not the bad guy.
Who's, she asked about why they're using the alien creature on him. They were like, that's for people that are super violent and really bad criminals. I like the alien that was talking to her that has the head tentacle thing. I thought he was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly,
he
kind of makes the prison break scene, I thought.
Yeah, I was like, if they know that this guy is a bad guy and everything, why wouldn't you have some sort of head restraint on him?
Yeah. That's a good point.
That was the only thing that I really had that I was like, that's kind of a...
Maybe they did, and the other
but
prisoners
it was also
were able to get it off him.
It was also a vessel that was purely droid. You know, you had one kind of like warden type character, and then you had the droid pilots that were just chairs. So, you know, you can defend that one that way. And then I just have, you know, still flying half a ship whenever she makes her her descent into the planet.
Yeah.
Her landing with style.
And this
Landing with style.
This is honestly like one of the points where I was like, man, it's kind of like this show shifted about halfway through here.
Yeah.
In that, because like the crash looked, I thought, pretty good. I was like, okay, like, so now I'm watching Star Wars. I have switched off of daytime TV, and now I'm watching Star Wars. It's kind of like what this felt like. Yeah.
And this was like the halfway point in the episode. And this was whenever I really started watching more than I was taking notes. Really.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I was just like, man, this show's actually getting kind of interesting. And I would have to remind myself to be like, okay, pay attention to technical things, pay attention to the scene, how you feel about it, and stuff like that. And I was just kind of watching. I was having a good time.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, are we ready to move on? I think our next scene is with Soul.
Yep, we flash back to Coruscant.
Yeah, as he's getting his team ready to go find Osha. This is what I think Tucker brought up earlier, where they change into the brown robe, something more traditional like we'd see in the prequel era.
And the costumes are higher quality, too, I do want to point out. Like, a lot of it doesn't have to do with the color of the robes, for me. I think a lot of it more so has to do with the quality of the costume.
Yeah, the material, how well it was made. I
It's
agree.
significantly
I completely
better.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had a quick thing. Whenever that, I can only assume she's a Padawan. Well, she is a Padawan because she gets called Padawan. She comes in to get Master Soul, and he's looking at the holo projection of Osha. And the Padawan asks Soul, like, why do you keep all these holo projections of your old Padawans and everything? That's kind of like attachment and stuff, and that's forbidden, and it's bordering on nostalgia and all this stuff, which is also forbidden. And he's like, if we don't meditate on the past, we're doomed to repeat the past. And this is whenever I started liking Soul, because I wasn't really, I liked the way he was being portrayed as a Jedi and everything, and I was digging his Jedi vibe with the meditation scene and everything, but I was like, he kind of sucks. But then this scene kind of brought me around to him. With him saying that and everything, it kind of reminded me, he kind of has this Qui-Gon flair about him, where he follows the Jedi tenets, but he bends them just a little bit to make them more conducive to actually being a normal person.
Yeah.
And maybe not even being a normal person, but actually in tune with the Force.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's whenever I was like, okay, Soul might actually kind of be a pretty decent Jedi here. Because he's like,
he might be him. Yeah.
Yes, Padawan, we do follow the tenets, but if you don't pay attention to things, it's gonna be bad.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Then they go get Yord.
Dude, why? Well,
Why what?
In between that and getting Yord, it's a quick flashback to Osha, and she's on the ship and everything. It's when she wakes up and whatnot.
Oh, her force
And there's
stream. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's when it's right before it's weird. I've got it exactly lined out. So we flash back to her real quick. And it's a stupid comment, but it was like, hey, there's a Star Wars thing. It's one of the beams that we see in the crashed ship is the trash compactor stick from A New Hope.
Oh.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I don't know if you guys saw it. There's a couple of them
uh-uh.
in the background, and there's one right there in the center where the giant hole of the ship where the snow's getting in.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, that's trash compactor stick. And I was happy that was there. I was like, I know that thing. And
Yeah,
they
for
just
sure.
put it there to be like, hey, this is Star Wars. Welcome back, friends. And I was like, okay. So that happens. Then we go back and it's Sol and the little Padawan going to get Yord.
Yeah.
And the Padawan asks Sol, like, who else are we bringing on this mission, Master? And he says Yord, and she's like, she just kind of like makes a face or something. And Sol's like, what? And she's like, oh, Yord's just Yord, Master. Mm-hmm. And then I hated this scene. I hated this scene so much, and I don't know why. Actually, sorry, excuse me. I do know why. This was just so blatant, and like I don't get why it was in Star Wars. Why do we have a Jedi shirtless ironing his robes 5 minutes before a mission?
Yeah. I the time thing I get. He should have been more prepared. The shirtless thing, I mean, why do we have Leia in a metal bikini, right? Like,
Fair enough.
Yeah, well, and also my point is, why do people decide to be shirtless in serious moments, especially like when they might want to be, talking about serious things and doing serious things, maybe with some old friends.
Listen, this is the way God made me. You don't even know if I'm wearing pants right now.
yeah, that's a really good point, Tucker. I didn't even put it together. Max naked.
You can't even see my nipples. I'm
to throw it out there.
PG-13 at this point.
Just had to throw it up there. Yeah.
I'm like PG-13 right now, right? You can't even see my nipples.
But honestly, in all seriousness, I agree. It just felt like, catering too much to your being an attractive young Jedi rather than like actually building the story. I thought it was a little weird.
Kudos to that actor. He's ripped.
Oh yeah, no, good for him.
Whatever he did to prepare for being Jedi Knight Yord, great for him. Mm-hmm. I wish I looked that good. Yeah. But Elijah makes a great point. Why do we need Leia in a metal bikini? I mean, I support it. I have her picture up on my wall. But
right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just because sex sells, and while unnecessary, it gets views. I mean, honestly, I think that's just the deal.
I'm okay with it as long as it's really minimal, right? Like we have Leia in a metal bikini, we have Anakin shirtless in episode 3, we have Yord shirtless here. Like
I'm okay with Anakin in episode. It was a silhouette. It was tasteful.
Listen, as long as it's minimal here and there, I don't care. If it starts to become a major thing, then I think they've kind of lost the point of Star Wars.
I agree with that.
But it also does help build that what we can only assume of Yord so far in this first episode, that he is the quote-unquote perfect Jedi Knight. You know, like,
and
of course Yord would be...
Yeah.
Of course Yord would be steaming his robes 5 minutes before a mission, because what's really important? Planning for the mission or looking like a Jedi Knight?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Excellent point.
Or the picture of a Jedi Knight, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think he just desperately wants people to see him like that, even though everyone, I mean, clearly even down to Padawans, know that he's not. Like, I think he's just a, especially just kind of that archetype of a very fragile male ego.
Yeah. The way I thought of Yord was actually due to the Rise of the Red Saber novel.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I compared Yord in my head to that Jedi whenever they're on the planet taking out the batteries.
Oh yeah, the one that dies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't get much of him.
Yeah.
But
because he's dead.
He kind of gives it. Yeah.
I'm just
kidding. I totally know what you're talking about. Yeah.
You kind of get the same vibe as him. And Tux read it, so he knows. You know what I mean? Do you remember him?
Yeah. No, I do too. Where it's the same thing where it's like he just became a Jedi Knight. He's doing literally anything he possibly can for other people to take him seriously and respect him, even though he's not really worthy of respect. and he's just, again, that kind of archetype of a very fragile man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they go to get OSHA, and this is whenever the Force Vision really started taking... Right. It was a big story point, and honestly, I really enjoyed it. I think they did a great job with this little Force Vision journey. I'm not mad about it. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They had a one line. There's this whole like conversation which it's hinted at that maybe this is something they would tell each other as kids, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the first line really stuck out to me. Always one, but born is two.
Yeah.
I feel like that.
Yeah, that whole rhyming thing was actually pretty cool.
And also,
yeah,
I give you you and you give me me. I thought that was like, wow, that hits.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn more about all of that.
Mm-hmm. I am
Poetry
too.
in Star Wars?
What?
Rhyming in Star Wars?
What?
Yeah.
And then just the reveal that, OSHA learns that her sister's alive. I thought it was done. I really like the fact that it was done through this vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then revealed too in her line whenever Soul rescues her. Whenever she says May's alive to Soul.
Good timing on May's part.
Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a good way to reveal it. Like, as far as the irony and making sure that the characters know in the story, I thought this was a clever way to do it.
Yeah, I don't know why, but it's directly after the Force scene. My next note is just Yord's a douche. I don't know why.
I mean, we already said that.
I don't know why that's my next note, though. I'm very confused on why I thought that right then.
Yeah,
but I
is
did.
this when they're walking, like when they're first walking on the planet, maybe, or
whenever he's just walking around with his lightsaber up the whole time for
using it as a light?
What feels like 20 minutes and no one else is, and it's also like a decently lit cave. Like, it's kind of unnecessary. It's a little silly.
Hold on, this has got to be I'm pulling it up on my computer. This has got to be like the last 5 minutes or something.
Yeah, we're getting really close to the finale. I've got I think 2 more notes.
Oh, I know why I said Yord's a douche. It's because during that whole Force scene, they're still on the ship. The Jedi are.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the little Padawan says something about, maybe it was like pirates or scavengers that stole supplies off the ship that OSHA ran away with.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, or maybe the Padawan suggests that OSHA's alive or something. And Yord is like, it was obviously pirates or something. And
that
just
was
completely
douchey.
Dismisses her.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're kind of a douche. But then I remember that's kind of how Jedi talk to Padawans, because Obi-Wan talked to Anakin like that a lot. I mean,
That's
given
true.
Anakin did need that kind of tough love at times. Whenever Episode 2 Anakin definitely needed to be knocked down a peg. Episode 3
for sure,
Anakin just needed a hug. But Episode 2 Anakin needed that, shut your mouth, my young Padawan, you have much to learn.
Yeah.
That's why I said Yord was a douche.
But also, she's not his Padawan. Like, that's the other thing too. That it kind of just shows.
That's a real good point.
Because honestly, again, going back to the fragile male thing, I mean, he doesn't have authority over her.
Right.
Like he has no reason to talk to her like that. Other than either he feels threatened by her, or has it in his head that he specifically needs to take her down a peg. It's kind of like a Mace Windu with Anakin kind of thing.
To also be fair to Yord,
where it's a little bit not cool.
He's only been a knight for 2 years.
Yeah, but again, that's kind of the thing though, is that I think someone who would be more worthy of my respect, just as an opinion, would be someone who can admit that they don't know, and someone who has some more humility. And that's why I think we were talking about it earlier. If this is how the character is meant to be, it's perfect, because the character, the way he behaves, he makes you not respect him.
Right.
And
He
I
probably has an arc that they have planned.
I think it's somewhat perfect as long as
That's the road we're headed down.
As long as he was
Yeah.
written this way on purpose. If he was written this way on accident, I've got some big problems. But yeah.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I have 2 quick notes that I just remembered. We don't have to go into depth on them, but they are stuff I'd like to bring up. One, we learn that the Nemoidians they have these techs to work on outside of the ship, even though it's supposed to be illegal, which I think is such
Very
a Trade
Nemoidian.
Federation thing to do.
Yep.
Yeah. 2, the escapees tried to blame OSHA for their riot and their escape, which I also thought was a really interesting detail. It was very crummy of them, but also it felt very real. Like, of course they would blame her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my next note is when they're at the end of the cave. Do you guys have anything before this?
I have a note on the cave, brother.
Me too. And I actually think we probably have the same note, but
Really? Is it Clone Wars related?
it is Clone Wars related.
Yes!
Let's go.
I'm just so glad that I got to talk about Clone Wars in something that's
sure.
set like so many years before it.
For sure. Take it away.
We get a almost like shot for shot throwback to Clone Wars whenever Ahsoka is on the run for being framed.
Yep.
And I was very surprised. I wasn't mad about the scene. I wasn't upset about it. I was like, this is actually a very good callback to Clone Wars. And if you hadn't seen Clone Wars, it wasn't a big deal. But for people that had and are big Clone Wars fans, you were like, this is Anakin and Ahsoka, bro. But it wasn't gross. You know, it wasn't a just copy. They did it in their own way.
They made it their own, yeah.
I was like, this was the perfect example of what George says. It's like poetry, it rhymes.
It rhymes.
But
This
you
is
have
how
to
you
do it.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to do it in your own way. And so this was
Yeah.
like the first time I was like, okay, Acolyte might be okay.
Yeah, I loved this moment. And then she falls, he saves her. I did like that Yord brings out his lightsaber and the Padawan, brings out the cuffs and Souls just like stand down and they walk past. I really liked that moment.
Yeah. I mean, the Padawan was obviously just doing what she thought was how this deal
Right,
goes, but Yord was being Yord.
Yeah, I felt like the lightsaber was a little excessive, but
Oh, Tuck, how do you feel? Because I specifically thought of this. I didn't write it down, but I knew I had to mention it to you. How do you feel about Yord having a yellow lightsaber, buddy? I know your favorite Jedi, non-canon wise, has a yellow lightsaber, and Yord, I guess, is of the same caliber as Jedi Master Plo Koon.
So first of all, Plo Koon's original lightsaber was orange in the PS1 game. Just want to throw that out.
Whatever.
What I think honestly is that it gives me a little hope, gives me some excitement, because maybe, just maybe, we will get canon examples of all of the, I'm going to call them original, and by original I just mean nostalgic, I guess I should say, of all the nostalgic lightsaber colors that we don't really get in canon Star Wars.
Well, I mean, we got that in the trailer.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying,
but-
it just gives me hope for the future. I guess, like, this show aside, I just mean in general.
I got that. We'll see it in future projects.
It gives me some hope that it's not.
There's a window there. They haven't shut the door and locked it.
Not everything has
Yeah.
to be blue, green, and red.
Yeah,
Which I
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, are we ready to move to the last scene?
Yeah, we gotta. You can take as big a bite of this as you want, or as small a bite of this as you want. Really,
I took it at face value.
in my
to be
opinion.
honest, I took it at face value.
His line about the weapons.
Oh yeah, no, I guess I just meant like this scene in general.
His whole speech.
And by taking it face value, I just took it like I'm watching any other whodunit, where it's irony. It's just the reveal of the bad guy for the audience before any of the main characters actually learn who the bad guy is. It's just it's classic whodunit, and I thought it was cool. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. The way I look at it is I kind of think he was telling her that she failed because she used a knife to kill Indara. I think that this era of Sith want their potential apprentices to be strong enough to kill a Jedi without a weapon to prove that they are the superior Force users.
And also,
Yeah,
to your
I
point,
kind of read it that way too. But he talks about the quote unquote dream, which is obviously referring to the picturesque vision of who the Jedi are, and how that dream has to be killed, and how an acolyte kills that dream without weapons or whatever. And my interpretation of it was this, what we can only assume is a Sith because we see the red lightsaber or whatever. We don't know if it's a Sith or not. It could be another acolyte, just like how we have the Inquisitors who aren't considered Sith. They're, followers. Right. That he's just like, this is how we kill the dream, is we take down the Jedi. And whenever he mentions weapons, to me it's like a poetic weapon. Like we kill them by destroying that vision of who the Jedi are, not by starting a grand war.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also, I mean, because honestly, too, that's what I like, is it also foreshadows how Palpatine's actually one of the only ones who ever did it successfully as far as killing the Jedi. And it's because he does exactly that. I mean, he kills the idea of the Jedi
through Plagueis' instruction.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of what this we'll call him a Sith. What his idea is to do this, because I think that it's the only way to ever successfully wipe out the Jedis. You have to wipe out the idea of them as well. And also the weapons line, what I actually thought about that was that, in this time period, like we talked about earlier, and so I'll just keep it short, is that the Sith are still trying to stay hidden. So I think it's one of those things where they definitely want to instruct their assassins and themselves and all that stuff to try to make it look like whoever killed said Jedi was not a Force user and definitely not a Sith. They want to keep up this idea that the Sith are dead, even though they're
Tuck,
not.
I just need you to say Darth Maul's line from episode 1 whenever he's having the meeting with Palpatine on Coruscant.
Oh, what is it?
Finally.
Yeah.
We'll reveal ourselves to the Jedi. Finally, we'll have our revenge.
Yeah, that's right.
One of the coldest lines in Star Wars, bro.
Yeah, but I think that's how it is.
Yeah, for sure. Well, was that all, boys?
I believe so.
Great. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate
Wait.
each
Hold
and
on
every one of
one
you.
second. Just keep the conversation going for a second. I have a surprise.
Beep bop, boop boop, beep bop. Hey buddy. Star Wars spaceships.
I gotta yell out the door.
lightsabers.
Hold on.
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Hey, come here.
Oh, his brother.
Oh,
To be fair, he was respecting my space and not coming in.
Oh, yeah.
good for him.
That's a good brother right there.
Good for him. Blasters, alien languages.
Hey, there
Say
he
something
is.
cool.
Hey,
What's up, Zach?
Yeah,
Hey,
say
man.
something cool.
Good to see you, buddy.
Something cool.
Hey,
Yeah,
something
surprise, my brother's here. Maybe he'll be on the next one.
cool. Oh,
I like it.
maybe.
I like it.
Take
Oh,
us
yeah.
out.
He's more than welcome to. If you want to be a part of this conversation, you can email us at animalsquadron@gmail.com. Again, that is animalsquadron@gmail.com. And if you could leave us a review wherever you're listening, that would be great. For the Animal Squadron, this has been MotherGoose.
Lowtech Tech.
HouseDog. Yeah, both of us. And BroDog's here.
And Brodog.
BroDog's here.
Goodbye, everybody.
Adios.
Goodbye.